everybody. Welcome to the garage. It's a Monday morning. Our posting and recording routine is a little bit out of kilter this week because we normally record Monday and Tuesday's program on the weekend, and then we record Wednesday and Thursday's program. As you know, Friday is live from around the dining room table. We record Wednesday and Thursday on Tuesday. But we had no, it wasn't a wardrobe malfunction, it was a microphone malfunction. So what we did on, I can't even remember, what we did on Saturday, we can't use it because you couldn't hear it. It was just terrible. Anyway, we're trying a different approach this time. I might revert to wearing these glasses, not for any perceived what can you call it? Affectation. But I have put some drops in the eye, and it really does make the eye a lot more sensitive. See, that is so much better. So if you'll forgive me, I'll wear the dark glasses. First of all, I want to say we here in South Australia, it's a small town, you know. I think everybody knows everybody. I want to say how sorry I am, and I'm sure I'm speaking for Pete as well.
Yes.
To hear that Grant Stevens' son was killed. First, it was it looked like an accident involving a motor car and irreversible brain injury, which over the weekend sadly resulted in young Charlie's death. So to Grant Stevens and all his family, a fine South Australian and a wonderful police commissioner, we send our deepest sympathy. It's a terrible thing, you know. When my kids were growing up, I don't think they were in that schoolies era. But as parents, you can't wrap them in cotton wool, can you? They will go and do schoolies. They will do things that are a bit edgy. Not that young Charlie was doing anything edgy, but a couple of lives here and a couple of families are terribly scarred by events at schoolies. What can I say? You just have to trust that you've brought your kids up to be sensible and responsible and not to get into harm's way, and just assume that all sorts of things can happen if you're not terribly vigilant. You've got to keep your eyes open. What else? Oh, the cricket, yes. Pete, you really should come over here and do the cricket tribute. But it was well done for Australia, wasn't it?
Well, it was, and I stayed up till 3 o'clock in the morning watching it, I have to say.
Oh, God, then you discovered that the work we did on the weekend, can't you see?
Well, there you go. But no, Travis Head, a South Australian, did a fantastic job.
Well, it was 130 or something?
Well, he got 137, I think it was, and he wanted to hit the winning runs, and he got caught out. So, but it was just a brilliant effort because India was undefeated.
Yep.
They were expected to win, and we lost 3 wickets very early.
Yeah.
And then Travis Head and Labuschagne came in. Labuschagne did fantastically well, as you know. He supported Travis Head, so that was a brilliant result for Australia and for South Australia's Travis Head.
Yep. Champions of the world, ladies and gentlemen, for the umpteenth time. Yes, we should be very proud of that. Something else I want to mention too, and that is I've taken to wearing my older Cobra, which is I think a fine hat. It's not one of those country and western hats, you understand, but it's more Australian, the Cobra hat, than most things you can think of. And over the weekend we saw that Twiggy Forrest and his lady, well, actually they're not married anymore, they're separated, but they go around investing in things like a Cobra and of course the mining industry, and most significantly R.M. Williams. I think they bought R.M. Williams going back a few years, and these things are safe in Australian hands, which is good to see. And I reckon that the Akubra hat is kind of unique in the sense of hats. It's not an American hat. It's not an English, Homburg or whatever. It's an Australian hat. It's very Australian. I think we can export those to the world, make them popular, because everything's a cycle, Hats a man would not go out in the street going back probably 40, 50 years ago. He wouldn't be dressed if he didn't have a hat on. Then slowly the hat fashion died, and so did that business. I don't know what Toogie paid for it, but a good, wonderful business. Started out in Tasmania, I believe, and it's now their main factory's up the up the north coast of New South Wales. I think it's Kempsey. Make a fine product, and I think it's much better to wear an Akubra than it is to wear one of those baseball caps, which is American. Australia's top spy organisation. Now, a lot of people might think it was ASIO or something like that. It's not. It's an outfit called the Signals Directorate. The Signals Directorate. They've released a very sobering analysis of our cyber vulnerability. More of us are reporting that we are being targeted by cyber criminals. And the hottest suspects, by a country mile, China, then Russia, then Iran. There have been, listen to this, 94,000 attacks on Australian companies and critical infrastructure in the past year. That's up 23%. One report every 6 minutes. Costing, of course, millions, if not billions. Queensland and Victoria seem to be favoured most by the cyber criminals, but this is only going to get worse and spread. How much more vulnerable can we be? Whatever effort we are putting into the business of protecting our business, banking, security, infrastructure, we've got to seriously lift our game. Now, a hot rumour, I suppose to do that we'll need money. Hot rumour, we were talking about it Friday when we were live streaming, jeremycordeaux.com. The Productivity Commissioner says the GST is not working. Well, I don't know what that means. I think it's probably code for we have to collect more money. And the GST was supposed to be on everything, and then for John Howard to get it up, and through the Senate he had to do deals with the Democrats, and the result was a bit of a dog's breakfast. But it got up 10%. And his grand plan for taxation in Australia was a good one. It was 30% corporate tax, the most, right? The most. 30% corporate, 30% personal, and 10% consumption, which is the GST. But of course, once the deal was done and the GST wasn't on everything, of course it wasn't going to raise the projected amount of money. So the word is that they will raise it to 15%, the GST, and put it on absolutely everything. And I think that is probably a good thing to do. Because if you tax consumption, it is helping to bring down inflation. Because people would sort of think twice about spending, and it's the spending that causes the inflation. If you tax consumption, it's a far more efficient tax. The idea of taxing energy and enterprise is plain crazy. Tax it, you'll get less of it. Subsidise it, you'll get more of it. So you want to tax the things, you don't want to tax people's energy and work. But that's, of course, what we do. I don't know if you've heard about this silly Merry Christmas story, have you? It's just another example of the woke people of the world. A shopping centre in Werribee in Melbourne have taken down the Merry Christmas signs And they've put up, merry everything. Merry everything. Let's include everything. Got to be inclusive. And the Americans do a little bit of this with their happy holidays. They don't like to say happy Christmas or any of the religious celebrations that are of that time of the year, because we might offend somebody. Well, I can't imagine I can't imagine a Jew being offended by somebody saying Merry Christmas. And I can't imagine a Christian being offended if a Jew says to him or her, Happy Hanukkah. You know, it's all so silly, isn't it? Merry everything, really. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. Britain has an answer to this sort of rubbish, this sort of nonsense. Britain now has a Minister for Common Sense. I love that. I think that's wonderful. The Minister for Common Sense. We all should have a ministry for common sense. And they should have a lot of power, if you ask me. Here in Adelaide, we're coming up to the 500. Well, we used to call it the Adelaide 500. It was a V8 supercar race around the streets of Adelaide. And now it's called the Velo. They don't even call it the 500, it's just the Velo. The Velo, and I had no idea. I suppose I'm living under a rock or something. I had no idea what Velo was. It turns out that they're a lighting company. Well, good for you for sponsoring the 500. But I think you shouldn't have assumed that everybody, people like me, would know who you are. Because all of that money you spend on advertising, a good part of it's going to go to waste if I don't know who you are, or what you do, or where you do it. Anyway, the race is, I don't know, a couple of weeks away. All the road closures come in about now. And the whole city is stuffed for the next month, really, because they got to put it all up and then they got to take it all down. The city, we're used to it being a very sensible, sane city. The traffic flows beautifully. I don't know if you know Adelaide, but it's a very good quality of life capital of the country. But not for a couple of months of the year when they're setting up the street race. Because whatever you do over here, in terms of road closures, it has ramifications all over the city. And we're set up with a very nice little grid. City square mile, parklands, and then inner suburbs, and then more parklands. But all the roads are nice. Well, they were certainly more spacious before they started putting in tram tracks and bicycle lanes, but that's another story. So we're in for this taste of what it's like to live in Sydney or Melbourne. And you poor guys have to put up with it every month of the year. 3 states are poised to reintroduce masks as COVID surges. I wonder how many people. How many injections have you had? How many vax?
5.
Yes, I've had 5 too. But a while ago, and they say if you haven't had a booster for 5 months, you should consider going to your GP or the local chemist and getting another booster. I don't know. Is it still the case that some people won't let you on the job or keep you employed if you don't have a completely up-to-date vaccination record? Or has that slipped along with the masks? I don't know. Watch out for COVID, please. We do want you well and happy. The Macquarie Dictionary's announcement of the word of the year, which is Matildas, well, they did very well. I guess that's a good word of the year. Matildas. Car sales have chosen their car of the year. It's a Chinese-made MG. The MG4. I've got no idea what it looks like. But an electric car?
A box on wheels, most likely.
Well, yeah, the box on wheels, look, it's really the way they do it. I don't even think that's terribly aerodynamic or efficient. in shape, but an electric car sells for about $40,000, and I don't know, I've got an MG, well, I've got a TC MG down there, which is 1949, now that was a car, and I've got a TF, which was about 1956, and the fly's back, Pete. Are you sure that wasn't the fly that mucked up the recording?
It could have.
Oh, God help us.
He's up bright and early anyway.
Yeah. Have I got time for one more?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not often we actually record on the very day we're posting, and to that end I must apologise, because if you do, it's normally there at 9 o'clock, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and we're there live on Friday at 9 o'clock, but this is going to be late.
It will be a little bit late.
It will be a little bit late because we're doing it afresh. Just to show you how out of touch this government really is here in Australia, there's a little Q&A, a question and answer survey kind of thing on my screen, my computer screen from time to time. Now, in the middle of a story, and you're interested in the story and you're reading down, so kind of in the middle of it, they've got you in other words, you want to finish the story, up pops a little sign that says, "To read more, please answer this question." So it's a kind of a survey. Now this one, they're all, by the way, from YourGov, which means your government, Living Consumer Intelligence, YourGov. So it is government, got to be government, hasn't it? You know what the question is? Are you worried about the current cost of living? Isn't that amazing that they have to ask, that they have to set up this business of surveying the electorate to ask a question that they should be absolutely in touch with? Of course we're worried about the current cost of living. And that you have to ask is a disgrace. I'll leave you with some quick dates. Where are we? It is the
20th.
20th, yeah. Okay, now let me see here. I tell you what, I can't get reading glasses until the eyes have settled down. But life will be a lot easier when I can go down and get myself some reading glasses, I tell you. Lewis Edson Waterman was born in New York. He invented the first practical fountain pen in 1884. He died May 1, 1901, and you can still go and buy a magnificent Waterman fountain pen. I think it's a lovely thing to do. I think from memory I gave, when my kids were old enough to appreciate a nice fountain pen, and we have, you don't have to spend a lot of money on a fountain pen. It can be a platinum or a Schaefer, but not a ballpoint pen, a proper fountain pen with a nib, one you put the ink in, you know. See, that's sadly another thing that's going to go by the board, like people wearing hats. You won't be able to buy ink. Yeah. Anyway, the first practical fountain pen, this day in 1837, Doris Day and Les Brown and his band of renown recorded Sentimental Journey. Sentimental Journey, I remember that, but she recorded so many wonderful things. Les Brown went on to work a lot with Dean Martin. 1944 was the year. That's the year before I was born. She recorded Sentimental Journey. Emilio Pucci was born in Italy, in Naples, fashion designer. 1914. Alistair Cook was born in Manchester. Very good journalist. Very, very good journalist, famous for his long-running, in fact, when I say long-running, I think it went for 40 years, his long-running Letter from America. He was absolutely great. I used to listen to that a lot. I wonder if there's still any copies of it around. Of course, it could be a very different America upon which he was reporting, or about which he was reporting back in those days. Rupert Murdoch attempted, I think this was the first time he tried, this is 1979, he attempted to buy the Herald and Weekly Times. But he got it in the end, didn't he? I'm pretty sure he did. He gets everything he wants in the end. How are you, Rupert? I hope you're well. Scott Newman died 1928 after a mixture of alcohol and Valium. He, of course, was Paul Newman's son. Tragically died young. He was 28 years old. 1978 was the year. There's another Scott Newman I knew very well. He was a radio man in Sydney, and he did a radio show on 2UE, I think, and he was a doctor. His real name was Dr. Paul Ricketts, and he gave up medicine because he wanted to be on the radio, and then he gave up radio because he realized he just had the most beautiful, beautiful voice, and he could make a fortune out of doing voiceovers, which he did to his great advantage. And I remember having dinner with him a couple of times. Charming man. I don't know whether he's still alive. He would be much older than me. Oh yeah, I'll just give you one more. The 50 billionth McDonald's hamburger said to have been sold in New York by Dick McDonald, who started the first McDonald's restaurant in 1948 with his brother in San Bernardino, California. 1984. 50 billionth. 50 billionth hamburger. Oh yeah, and happy birthday to Robert Kennedy, born in Brooklyn, Massachusetts, 1925. Thank you very much for viewing the Court of Public Opinion, ladies and gentlemen. We will rush this into the dark room and make sure that it was the microphone and not something else that went wrong. And we'll see you tomorrow. Peter Clayton behind the camera. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Believe in yourself, and goodbye for now.